I had Cam Akers under 61. I had Bengals plus 7.5. I had San Fran plus 3.5, and then I bet on the Rams money line in the second half when they were down.
Yeah, I get it. No more crazy.
I had a good weekend. It was fun.
That's a good weekend.
It was a good weekend, yeah.
Fantastic weekend in terms of sports betting.
I mean, I'll give it all back next weekend. It's okay.
I got trapeze.
Luda, man, living up to it.
Yeah, he is just he has a really, really active 3-better, and it's interesting because the players don't tend to 4-bet him.
Yeah.
They don't play back at him very often.
Exactly, and if they're not going to, then you just print money whenever you just 3-bet people out of pots all the time. You get to go to the flop with a stronger range more often. It's just fantastic. But Nick does flop the best of it here.
Jimmy Bluffit says humble brag tuck. I am everything, and you know me. I am humble. I'm all about the humble.
The most humble.
Oh yeah. Greg Potter alongside me in the commentary booth. Greg, you're going to be here all week, right?
I will be here all week.
Awesome.
Yep, be doing it. Be here for the game tomorrow with Poker Bunny, and then all the way through Friday, and then the meetup game with Andrew Nemi and Brad Owen.
So on your left arm, you have a pair of 7s.
Pocket 7s, man.
Why?
First live tournament win, no chop is what I won with Pocket 7s.
Cool.
Told myself I was going to get a tattoo with my first live bank. I've had,
imagine like your first hand, like the first tournament was like Queen 4.
That's what I was about to say. I'm really glad that I got something as nice and pretty as 7s rather than like 10-4 suited or some trash.
I mean, last hand it could literally be anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when you're sitting 10 bigs deep, you never know.
Oh, yeah, just a normal day at the 5-5-50 game. Just going to call that 6K check raise with the old Jack 10 off here. Let's see what the turn is. This is just normal. Everybody calls with this hand.
I don't even have any diamonds, bro.
It's great because, I unblock.
I have a backdoor straight draw and overs.
All right, let's go back to pre-flop real quick.
Okay.
This game is obviously amazing. Look at these limpers with the hands that they're limping with.
I swear to God, I think right now I'm in a dream because it can't be real that this is happening.
At these stakes that there are players playing like this, it's amazing. You can see why Nick might want to raise from the cutoff. We initially thought, why would you raise limpers with a hand that, isn't that great when often in cases like this limpers call, but these guys might actually fold some of these hands. Maybe not the ace-6 suited, but the other hands are so bad. Luda may be jumping on top of that. The 3-bet, it feels like Ludacris is always 3-betting or 4-betting or 5-betting or 8-betting or whatever. So it might just be an instinct for him to do no matter what. But I think in this case, it might actually be a decent thing to pounce on because he might see what Nick's doing here and recognize what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think both the pre-flop raise and 3-bet are justifiable based on the amount of limpers and the kind of trash they're limping with, which they really do have to fold to these raises. It's going to work a lot for what both these guys are doing. I don't really have a problem with what either one of them are doing, even though normally you would think Nick would just be a very natural limp behind with his hand.
Right, but in this case, if the players are playing these types of hands, fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Nick does call with 3-4 of spades, which is a bit ambitious. Stack the pot might get a little fishy, but it is ludicrous. He often has an unpaired hand. We have more equity against his range than most 3-betters' ranges. It's not horrible.
And, we didn't come here to fold, Grant.
We didn't come here to fold. We did come here to check raise the flop.
Yeah.
So Luda's bet on the flop. We can discuss sizing, but we're not going to. It's fine. It's normal to bet here.
Yep.
Nick check raising is pretty interesting. What's your take?
I mean, it feels like he's got to be denying equity to overcards, right? Like almost always.
Apparently not.
Well, trying to deny
yes.
equity, at least. That's the intention. You're right. We can't know any more than that. But it feels like that's got to be what it is. Like, he wouldn't be trying to check raise 2 jacks right now because jacks aren't going to fold to him. Ludacris definitely not folding jacks here, right?
Doesn't look like it.
No. And, Nick can have a flush draw. He could have diamonds. So that's the bluff, or even 5-6 or something like that. So it could be a straight draw. It's a weird hand to choose to do it with because it's so bad, but it is sort of like one of the worst hands we can ever show up with here. That is a made hand that would want to protect some of its equity. It's a very surprising play, to be clear.
Yeah, I think it might be based on it being Ludacris.
Yeah.
That Ludacris has a range that is so expansive pre-flop. He's going to bet all of it on the flop. Nick doesn't know what he needs to avoid on the turn. It makes it a lot easier to play if you just win right now and fold out his junk. Now, things don't always go according to plan, obviously. Because Luda has junk. I mean, he's got 2 overs, but there's nothing going on here.
I mean, he could be drawing nearly dead here. Right?
He really, really could, but he calls anyway.
I mean, wow.
And it just feels, I said this on the podcast, it feels like Ludacris was born with fancy play syndrome and it's terminal. Like, this is just a fancy play, right?
Yeah.
He's like, every hand that Ludacris enters, he feels like he has to win. He's trying so hard to win this hand. What is the best way to go about that? Well, I can't rep that much by 3-betting here.
Right.
So I have to call because folding's out of the question because I have to try to win the hand.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if Luda's going to play like this, though, that makes me question if Nick should ever be check-raising a hand like this. Because if you can't get the guy to fold anyway, you're just bloating a pot where you're out of position, and it's going to be very hard to call down with this kind of a hand.
That's
and I assume Luda's going to keep firing, given the opportunity.
That's true, but maybe as Nick, we don't know the extent
Yeah.
of Luda's fancy play syndrome. We don't realize he's going to call with Jack-10 off.
I wouldn't have thought so. I would think we would successfully fold out hands like King-Queen because we could have a 7, you
Right.
know? And, like, they just be like, it's not worth it. Like, who cares? But... No, Luda's fighting for everything. I mean, you got to admire the fighting spirit.
The fighting spirit is fun to watch, and that's why we're here.
Yeah.
The link in our pinned tweet is very important to you right now because even if you're already on Nitrogen Sports, they are moving to Nitro betting, which means you have to sign up again, but don't worry, it's very easy and there's a lot of great benefits.
Yeah, by the way, the site is exciting and fun and colorful. It's beautiful. But also, you know, like they have March Madness brackets. Now they have brackets for everything. You know, like Super Bowl squares. Now they have squares for everything. This is all on Nitro. It's great. It's fun. But you got to use the pinned tweet to get that Poker Guys monthly tournament and all the other cool stuff that you get.
Even if you already signed up for Nitrogen Sports, use the new link and we will see you there.
Wow, did Luda bet called a check raise on this texture
Yeah.
with Jack high nothing.
He'll gamble.
No redraw, man. I mean, he's correct in thinking that his pair outs are live, and Nick's going to give it up. Wow.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I think he just doesn't, you know, he suspects Nick is going to have some diamonds in his range. He suspects that maybe Nick does have a 3 occasionally, but he very rarely has a 7.
Yeah. Could even maybe, if he's doing this with a 3, he could be doing this with like 4s, 5s, and 6s.
Yeah, absolutely.
But obviously 5s, not as relevant.
Is Ludacris going to bet $8,000 here?
I think so. I mean, once he calls the flop,
Oh, what does Bertucci do?
I'm out. I'm gone. I mean, he does have a gutter.
I feel like this is a check back a lot, though, if I'm Ludacris. If I had nothing. I mean, if I actually had, let's say you had 10s.
Yeah.
Let's say he has what he's repping. How often are you checking this hand back after you get check raised on this board? Are you always betting it? And are you betting half pot?
I think I would be betting mainly for protection for something like 10s. I'd be more inclined to check back something like aces or kings.
Okay.
Because they don't need as much protection.
That's fine. That's fine.
But they do. But 10s certainly
There's the
do.
call.
Wow, Nick's going to check call.
This is just like let's get in the streets and fight poker. The 9 is
man.
irrelevant. I don't think the 9 changes a damn thing unless just randomly you had 9x of diamonds.
Or just pocket 9s for Chris, but
yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much a brick.
I think when Nick check raises the turn, he's going to have 7s occasionally here. He's going to have a 7 in his hand once in a while. I don't know if Ludacris is always betting that turn with an overpair. And now the pot is $31,000.
Big one. Oh man, I didn't even look at the SPRs actually.
I mean, SPR is like a half.
Yeah, it's. I mean,
0.55.
I mean, Luda's gonna ship it here.
Oh,
wow, man!
Come on, can Bertucci do it?
Wow! Oh my gosh!
Greg, we gotta get you.
I love this.
You gotta be in the booth all the time. This is some great action.
Yeah, I know. Apparently, the action follows.
Seriously, oh my gosh.
This is
I
sick.
mean, we have seen
what a play by Ludacris.
Yeah, we saw the bluff from Ludacris and the call. And can Nick call with absolutely just bluff catcher? He can beat diamonds, though.
He can beat diamonds and he can beat
He can beat
Jack 10.
garbage. He can beat a weird float.
Beat total air. Wow, man.
Does make you think that you should play. If you had a 7 on this board, you should play it as a check raise and then check.
Yeah, just to induce Ludacris to do exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
Oh man. I mean, that is true. I guess I was thinking a 7, if Nick had it, would probably still bet the turn. But if Ludacris is going to do stuff like this, then I would absolutely check a 7 to him.
Nick usually talks. So let's see if he does here.
Well,
He's doing his best Darth Vader impression.
it'll be a long way coming back. That's for sure. Long way coming back. What do you want me to do, Chris? It'll be a long way coming back.
He wants you to fold.
I had a good month last month. I mean, I like a good challenge. 16, how much?
16,540.
16, 540. Let me get the chips out.
I'm just going to stand up. I'm going to ask you a question because I subscribe to a theory.
Okay.
I don't subscribe to this theory. Some people subscribe, well, if you call the flop and nothing changed, you got to call the river. I don't subscribe to that theory.
Oh, absolutely.
Because your opponent bet.
You're gonna get
Yeah.
paid.
The thing is, if nothing changes your opponent's
Big
range,
fucking day for you, bro. You had to win one eventually. 16 what?
16,540.
I don't know how I could call this right now. Especially after what you did. I'm sure he has to have it. 16 what?
16,540.
Really, it's really a shame. 16,540, huh? Well, that's a lot of money right there. I'm not fucking around. Like, I'm calling so thin that it's gross. But this is why you get paid, because this is why you get paid, my friend. Nice hand.
Shut the fuck up, dude!
Okay, I feel like I almost have to catch my breath because, wow, the decisions are so unusual in some ways. I mean, I guess we got here in crazy ways already. So let's talk about this. Let's of course start with the turn. So should Nick be checking this turn? Should he be betting this turn? Should he be calling once he checks? Like, what do you think, man?
It's a really tricky spot. This is part of why people don't like to check raise these really marginal showdownable hands on the flop like Nick did, because now we're on the turn and usually you're not going to get a great card for your hand. This is actually one of the better cards in that it doesn't improve Luda that often, and also we picked up a gut shot. But still, against the majority of what you would think a traditional player's range would be, we're still losing. We've attempted our equity denial. So is it just time to give up? Just check fold? That doesn't feel right against a player like Ludacris.
It doesn't. We did pick up the gut shot. And of course, I mean, check folding seems weak. Check calling seems tough. I think we should at least consider check raising some of the time. We block the straight. We block some full houses with the 3 in our hand. It makes it very hard on Ludacris now to call with some of his overpairs. Maybe he's going to. And if he's just going to be super sticky, maybe we shouldn't do any of this. But I think it's an interesting thing to at least think about.
It's interesting to think about. I am concerned that it's not going to work on Ludacris.
Me too.
If Ludacris were to have an overpair, which is the majority of what he's repping here when he bets 8K on the turn, right?
Agreed.
So it's a perfectly good story that Luda's telling. He's saying I have like 9s plus, something like that.
Yep.
Maybe 8s. And it's a fine story. But as Nick, I understand why you don't believe it, because it's freaking Ludacris. We have history here. You know, this guy, he's got the fancy play syndrome and he likes to use it. And as we see, he's using it right now with the Jack 10.
Yeah.
I feel the impulse of wanting to just fold. Picking up the gut shot makes me kind of feel a little bit different, you know?
Yeah.
Like
You get
against
more
this
good
guy.
cards. I mean, a 4 or a 6 are not bad for us on the river if Luda were to bet again.
Right, because either one should scare him.
Exactly.
Right, if he had an overpair.
He'd have to have a full house to be able to comfortably bet, you think. Or straight.
But that's not what we get on the river. We get the 9 of hearts, which, you know, could have made Luda a full house.
Yep.
Certainly doesn't, because nothing could have made Luda a full house. He has Jack 10 off.
Indeed.
So
Luda
Nick
has nothing.
Nick checking makes sense.
Of course.
All right, with a half a pot back, is this the right move for Luda to just go for it?
I'm a little worried about our image and what that may spawn as we see what it spawns, right? So maybe we just don't have the image to get away with stuff like this. But you would think against most players, if we had a relatively reasonable image even, most players in Nick's shoes are going to have a hand that's like a 6, pocket 5s, a 4, or a 3, or pocket 4s, sorry, a 5, pocket 6s, pocket 4s, or a 3, right? They're going to have a small pair.
Maybe pocket 8s sometimes.
Maybe a little bit of pockets, but like marginal holdings.
Yeah.
That hate getting shoved on here when all we've done is effectively look like we have an overpair. I would think this would work if we had any kind of a reasonable image. I think this is mostly going to work. Do we have a good enough image to pull this off? I'm not sure.
We may not. Implicit in what you're saying is that Ludacris should move in with overpairs.
Right.
And it's not like a game 3 disaster type spot to move in with an overpair. It's actually reasonable. If Nick believes that, then that makes this call pretty questionable. If Nick thinks that Luda's actually moving in with overpairs. There are a few conditions that make this call okay in my mind. One is if Nick really believes that Luda would not move in with overpairs, that Luda would have to have a straight or a full house to move in, then you can call with this hand, I think. But beyond that, we are so low in our distribution that might actually get here this way. I don't think we can justify calling over time because we have a lot of other hands that we can call with instead that are better hands.
I agree. And I don't think having the 4, which blocks the straight, which would be 4-6, is that valuable because Luda's not really repping a straight here, right? He's repping jacks type of a hand, or maybe 9-9 or something like that. That's what it feels like to me.
Right.
He's repping.
Right. So yeah, I think it might be too wide, but maybe if there's anybody in the poker world to call,
Yeah.
Luda might be the guy. Maybe
that's
even
true.
with all of that said, maybe Luda has so many combos of just unpaired garbage
Trash.
that it's still okay. Like we're not losing tons of money with the call.
I mean, think about the parlay that has to happen though. He's got a 3-bet pre with unpaired overs, fair.
Check.
Yep. He's got to call the check raise on the flop with unpaired overs.
Yeah, check.
Right. I guess he's going to bet the turn always if we check to him, and he's going to bet the river always if we check to him, right? But still, like, a lot of players aren't going to show up there, and I don't even know if Ludacris is always going to show up with this kind of a, like, is he always calling the check raise with just the unpaired overs is the question. I don't know the answer. If he is, I guess we should call. If he isn't, we should probably fold.
That seems right. Okay, so these guys play a little bit of interesting poker, so it's a bit of a challenge for Pio and Wesley Cannon, who did the solving, to figure these mercurial people out.
But thank you, Wesley, for solving this one.
Yes. All right, so I'm just going to quote Wesley directly from his solve here. Pre-flop ranges. Both of these guys are way out of line pre-flop, so I gave them a lot of partial hands that they should never have, including the ones they have in this hand.
That's the only thing you can do when you're working with the solver at these kinds of ranges.
Right. So we get to the flop.
Yep.
And now that we're here, Pio likes Luda's bet and his sizing choice. He went a little big, like 2/3 pot. It likes that with his range, and with his hand specifically as a bluff.
Cool.
Here is what Wesley had directly to say about Nick's raise. He can raise some hands here, but it should really just be 7x, 3-3, and gutters and flush draws. He's actually mostly supposed to fold this hand.
Huh.
Yeah.
I understand the first part about basically you want to be more polarized with your raising range. Like we have very much a medium strength hand here. So picking this to raise means like, what aren't we raising almost? But it's interesting to fold the pair on the 7-7-3 board immediately.
Yes, it is interesting.
How about that?
I guess it's hard to improve when the board's paired in a way that can hurt you in the future. I don't know.
I guess. When we're losing very badly.
Yeah.
And again, because the board's paired, we have many less outs.
I would never consider folding this hand.
I would always not fold.
Yeah. So, 3 question marks there. Here's another quote from Wesley. Despite this being a bad raise by Nick, this is an even worse call by Luda.
I mean,
of course.
Thanks a lot, solver.
Yeah. Well, we needed a $250 piece of software to tell us that.
I mean, anyway, but of course, yes, we all agree. Good Lord.
Yep. On the turn, even though the solver never wants Nick to be here, he should check now that he is. So I guess he did that. He did that well. Congratulations to Nick. Luda has a pure bet. His hand just has no showdown value, and it's just time to go for the gusto.
Now that we're here, we've put ourselves in this ridiculous spot. If we call, right, like, what are we doing if we're not betting? And the solver obviously thinks so too.
And the solver wanted to fold Nick's hand on the flop. What do you think it thinks about the turn?
I mean, I would think when now that Luda's called the check raise, I think especially now it probably.
But he picked up a gut shot.
He did. At least he picked up.
He should fold. Pio wants him to fold.
Yeah, we could be drawing dead. Could be drawing nearly dead. Could be drawing awful dead.
He could be drawing against Luda, which should change the solver's output because it's Luda.
Well, I mean, it does. The solver has Luda's range as best as Wesley could come up with.
Yeah, I mean, Wesley is doing his best, but really his range should probably just be all yellow on that board. It's just like everything's yellow.
Okay.
All right. On the river, Luda can jam pretty light. We did discuss this a little bit. He can jam as light as 8s for value. 10-9 also included in the value.
Basically trying to get value out of pocket 6s.
Stuff like that. And he
Weird.
should bluff all of his whiffs. So that includes
So it's like, you did it. You did it great.
I guess if he has that wide of a value range, he can bluff a lot of whiffs.
Right. And Nick, based on the way Nick's played it, you can see why the solver's like, I mean, you just don't have an overpair to the 7s very often, right? When you check the turn on the what was the turn? Was it a deuce?
It was a 5.
It was a 5, but still, it'd be weird to check pocket 8s on the turn, for example.
Well, Nick should fold again for the 3rd time.
Every time.
Actually, the 4th time probably.
And literally on every street, the solver wants Nick to fold.
Yeah,
right? Every single street.
But guess what? The solver wouldn't have made all this money, and Nick did.
Yeah, so solver's broke and Nick is woke.
Exactly. And Nick says that all the time.
Yeah.
I've seen him say it.
Okay, so the solver had some very strong opinions. Grant and I also with strong opinions. What do you guys think about the way these guys are playing? Look, they're taking it to the streets here, right? So maybe you can't solve for something like this when you've got guys with such crazy ranges. And maybe we can just throw some of the GTO stuff out. Maybe you just have to be more exploitative. I don't know, man. Maybe you can make some more range-based decisions, though. What do you guys think about some of these decisions? Do you think, like, for example, Luda should be actually calling that flop? check raise? Should Nick even be check raising? And of course, Nick ultimately deciding to call both turn in, especially river. Weigh in the comments. We want to know what you have to say.
Weigh in on Discord, baby. That's where all the cool kids are.
Woo!
Don't you want to wear sunglasses all the time?
Always.
That's what you do on Discord.